Shabbat Shalom again.
Shabbat shalom.
We are so lucky this evening to have such a special guest with us. So I think you all likely know, it's probably one of the main reasons so many of you are here, that Yinam Cohen, the Consul General of Israel to the Midwest, is here. We're actually also joined by his wife, Ayelet. Shabbat Shalom. Yinam has a busy schedule normally, and since October 7th, he has, not surprisingly, worked nonstop. But in most sacred purpose of being a connection for us here in the Midwest to Eretz Yisrael, and bringing us to Eretz Yisrael, forging that connection, making sure it remains strong. And I'll also say, really, I think if you've heard him speak or been in his presence, really stepping forward as a beacon of strength and even hope in a time when it is difficult often to hold on to and feel those sentiments, those qualities, and to act that way. But that's just who he is. He has a very impressive bio, but I think that speaks more powerfully to who this man is, and we are so lucky to have him with us here this evening. So friends, here is what's going to happen. Yinam will speak for a bit. If we have time, we will engage in a Q, and he will engage in an A. Okay? Do you follow me? This is critically important. So just to, again, and if there is time for you to ask a Q is a brief statement that is a true question for which you require Yinam Cohen to offer an answer, meaning you don't know the answer. You catch me? Okay. Again, we will see if there is time, and if there is time, it will likely be limited time, just so you all know. I don't want to mislead anyone's expectations. Most importantly, we get to hear from Yinam Cohen, so won't you please warmly welcome him to our show. Be louder. I think this needs to be louder.
Rabbi Geffen, thank you so much for this kind presentation, and it's so good to be here again. Thank you for your leadership, Rabbi Geffen, throughout this time. So my name is Yinam Cohen. I'm the Consul General of Israel to the Midwest. We're based here in Chicago, and I wanted to share with you, I know all of you follow the news and have strong ideas about the news, but I want to share some of my perspectives about recent developments in the past year, both in Israel and here. Ayelet and I just came back from Israel this week. For multiple reasons, it was our first visit to Israel since October 7th. And even though it's my job, Israel is my job, I have to say that we were struck by what we've seen there, in the sense that, again, while I'm surrounded 24/7 here with everything that's going on there with the hostages and all the business, it is so present still in Israel in public spaces that you just can't avoid that for a second. And even for us, that was something that was very, very, very strong. It seems like Israel, or I should say Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, definitely not the south and the north, but Israel is back to normal as much as one could be back to normal, but if you scratch a little bit under the surface, there's still a lot of pain and a lot of anxiety. And I want to say also some hope because we know that when it will be over, it will be an opportunity to maybe shape together a better Israel. So I really want to share with you very briefly some of the perspectives about what's going on right now. As you know, fighting is still going on in the Gaza Strip, mainly in the city of Rafah right now. I don't want to go, it is such a sacred place, and with all the positive energies, to go into details about the fighting, but I would say that this is the last major stronghold that we feel that we need to defeat in the city of Rafah. And while the price is high, I would say that there are very good military results. And why is it important? First, because this is the last stronghold of Hamas in the Gaza Strip, but also because, as you probably know, the city of Rafah in Gaza is the southmost city in the Gaza Strip, and that connects to Egypt. And while there's a lot of traffic between the Gaza Strip and Egypt over the ground, there is much more underground. There are multiple tens of tunnels that connect the city of Rafah in Egypt, which serve Hamas for smuggling everything you can imagine, and this is one of the major goals of the IDF there. I don't want to, predict or give a timeline, but I believe that very soon, maybe in a matter of 2 to 3 weeks, maybe more, maybe less, the major operation will come to an end, or I would say the intensity that we've seen in the past months might come to an end. And that would mark a new stage, a stage that would focus on different kind of operations, less intensity with the presence in the Gaza Strip. And I hope that that would also be an opportunity, a new opportunity to bring about, the deal that we need so badly. If you listen, and I'm sure you have, many of you, last night to the presidential debate, I'm not going to go into American politics and the implications, but I think President Biden really, in 40 seconds, really encapsulated what's at stake right now. And that is a proposal that's been on the table for some months now. Hamas unfortunately refused 6 or 7 times to accept it. And the last version of the proposal is something it's a US-Arab proposal that is globally endorsed. It was endorsed by the Europeans, by the Security Council of the United Nations. Israel, of course, accepted that. The Qataris, the Egyptians, everybody are exerting a lot of pressure on Hamas to accept that too. This is a deal that includes both an extended ceasefire and the gradual, unfortunately, only a gradual release of the hostages, but the release of the hostages. We're praying every day for the return of Hirsch and all the hostages back home, those who are living and those who unfortunately are not amongst us anymore. And I think that if and when we're reaching this stage, that would also enable us to do something that's almost, I would say, not less important, and then deal with the huge challenge that we have on our northern border. Because as you know, since October 8th, Hezbollah started a war against Israel, an unprovoked war against Israel. Many of our communities and our towns on the northern border have been evacuated. People have not been living in their homes for more than 8 months now. And I would say, again, just from my personal experience, last Shabbat, we spent last Shabbat at my in-laws' house in Kiryat Ata. This is a town by Haifa, and we feel that this is the northmost border of Israel right now. People do not go north to the Galilee because it is under fire from Hezbollah, and this is crazy, this is unsustainable, and this is something that has to be changed. Now, I really hope that we'll be able to change that and solve that through diplomatic channels. And I would have to say that the American administration have put so much efforts in the past months to find a formula to do that. I don't know if you heard the name Amos Hochstein. He's President Biden's special envoy for energy matters, but he has an expertise in Lebanon. By the way, he speaks fluent Hebrew, and served in the IDF. And he's been going back and forth to Lebanon and to Israel to find a way, to find a formula that would enable our citizens to go back to their homes. Because if you remember, after the Second Lebanon War in 2006, the United Nations, the international community, demanded Hezbollah to go up north, demanded no Hezbollah presence south of the Litani River. Okay, this is the river in the south of Lebanon, 10 to 15 kilometers from the border of Israel. Hezbollah has been breaching this resolution from day one. And I don't see any Israeli going back to their homes along the border knowing that Hezbollah is on the other side. So what the Americans and others are trying to do is to find a solution that would make Hezbollah go up north. But the problem is, and here's our catch-22, is that while the situation in the Gaza Strip has not been resolved, Hezbollah is unwilling to stop their war against Israel. So everything is interconnected, which makes it very, very complicated. In the past few weeks, Hezbollah has really escalated their attacks on Israeli communities, on the north of Israel, and this is a very dangerous situation. And I really hope that we'll be able to solve it by diplomatic means. Now, if we're able to do that, both the Gaza Strip and Lebanon, here's the big question, and that's the day after, right? Because we all understand that military means are not enough, right? Diplomacy always comes after military operation. And we need to think, not only in Lebanon, but also in the Gaza Strip, what's going to happen there. So there are a lot of bright minds, both here in Israel, in our region, that are thinking about that. There are many ideas about how the day after should look like, but I really want to share with you 2 points that I think everybody understands that need to be part of any future for the Gaza Strip. The first one, of course, is a Palestinian regime, Palestinian governance that is not Hamas, that does not include Hamas. It's not only about Hamas as an organization, terrorist organization, or also a political party there, but about the idea, right? Because while we're trying to defeat militarily Hamas right now, Hamas is also an idea, it's an ideology. And to uproot this ideology, this is not something you do with a military operation. It's a very long process. So we need a Palestinian regime that is not Hamas and is freer, more democratic, to some extent more accepting of the presence of Israel. And secondly, it is very clear that the Palestinians would not be able to do that on their own. So we will see, at least for months, but probably for years, presence of other Arab countries who are, I have to say, also our partners, Israel's partners, right? The Egyptians, the Jordanians, the Emiratis, the Moroccans, maybe the Saudis in the Gaza Strip, not only reconstructing the Gaza Strip, and there has been a lot of suffering and a lot of damage in the Gaza Strip, we have to admit that, but also reconstructing the governance and building a society and a regime that is, again, more democratic and with hopefully laying the foundation for future reconciliation with Israel. So these are the major 2 goals, and I really hope that we'll be able to see this process starting in the upcoming months. Now that would, of course, hopefully open the doors also for enhancing peace in the Middle East, the Abraham Accords. As you remember, President Biden has been very, very busy in trying to bring Saudi Arabia into the peace circle with Israel before October 7th. And I think their interests have not changed. If at all, I think they're stronger now, of the Saudis, to have peace with Israel. First, because I'm not going to go into Middle Eastern politics, and internal politics, but they're really trying to rebuild their country, a country that is more based on innovation, on technology, rather than energy, just like what the Emiratis did 20 and 30 years ago. And the obvious partner for that in the region is Israel, and they understand it. And secondly, because our biggest threat, I say our, is Israel's and the moderate Arab countries, remains Iran. And what you saw in April, you remember this Saturday, a few weeks ago, 2 months ago, when the Iranians shot 300 projectiles, missiles, and drones towards Israel, is a regional and global coalition that dealt with that. It was both the Americans, the French, and the Brits, but also the Saudis, the Emiratis, and maybe some others, together with Israel. And this is, I think, really the foundation for the future that we want to see in the Middle East. So I hope that would be the end goal of this horrible, horrible time that we're living right now. Just very short words about America, because while my biggest concern, of course, is Israel and the region, I think that the past months have shown us that there is a very serious reason for concern also here in America. I'm not going to go, you live that, you've lived that every day, you know that. But I think that really the rise of anti-Semitism, especially a new kind of anti-Semitism, you know, we've all lived with anti-Semitism coming from the far right, neo-Nazis, white supremacists. I think the new anti-Semitism emerging from the far left is no less of a concern. And we need together to think how we can deal with that. For me, being an Israeli representative in the city of Chicago is a special concern. Both, I have not one good single word to say about the mayor of Chicago and his refusal to not fight anti-Semitism, but even speak about anti-Semitism, including amongst his closest political circles. Chicago is going to host the DNC in mid-August. Stay in Glencoe, don't go downtown. I'll be there for you. It's going to be very messy. And we have a lot to do. And what's most painful for me, I have to say, is that I'm seeing that the rhetoric and the propaganda, and again, criticizing Israel is totally legitimate. It's not anti-Semitism. Criticizing the existence of Israel is much more problematic. And what's painful for me sometimes is to see that many members of some minority communities have joined that, referring to Israel as, Zionists, as white supremacists. And I would also almost say that this is a personal pain because I truly believe in the partnership with African American communities, with Latino communities. We actively work to create new partnerships with these communities, and the majority of the members of these communities are, of course, not there, but some leaders are, and it's very concerning. So we have a lot of work to do. I have a lot of work to do, but I think you have a lot of work to do too, to rebuild these partnerships. And I would say just one last word. I have a whole pitch of that. I'm not going to say that. But I'm going to try to simplify that. My major conclusion from the past months is that my biggest concern is to guarantee a strong Israel. And my conclusion is, that is probably not new for you, for a strong Israel, we need a strong American Jewry. And I know that the past months have been very painful. There's been a lot of pain, a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear. But I also try to look at the silver lining. And what I've seen during the past months is many, many members of the Jewish community coming together. And I see a growing understanding that both Israel and American Jewry are there together on this issue. We could have a lot of differences about certain issues, but in the end of the day, we're together on this issue. And I think that what leadership should do now, Jewish leadership here and leadership in Israel should do now, is think how we guarantee a strong American Jewry for the next decades. This is our goal. Because unlike many Israeli leaders, I don't tell you come to Israel. Of course, come to Israel, you're welcome, it's your home if you decide to. But I think that we need you here. We need you here, we need you strong here in America, because that makes Israel stronger too. So reinforcing the Jewish identity amongst our communities, and again, it's not a religious thing, just in terms of culture, it's a cultural perception about our Jewish identity. It is really vital to guarantee the Jewish continuity and the Jewish strength here in America and elsewhere for the upcoming decades. I want to say thank you for everything, and I know how many of you have done so much for Israel in the past year, whether by financial support or by going to Israel to volunteer in orchards and fields and elsewhere. It means a lot to us. It means a lot to Israelis. Israelis are desperate to see you in Israel, to feel the support, to feel your love. So do that, okay? And thank you for everything that you've been doing during the past year. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. All right, friends. Okay, there's time for two. Mark Rasnick, you had your hand up. You'll get one. It's a question, right? Great.
I think that there are many perceptions about Bibi, both here and in Israel. I have my perceptions, which I'm not going to share, of course, tonight. But it is very legitimate. There's a whole spectrum of perceptions. While I hear the criticism in your question, and it is very legitimate, I don't think that it's about one person. I think it is something much deeper. I do not see real peace between Israel and the Palestinians in the upcoming years. What I want to see is a gradual process of reconciliation, of rebuilding the trust that has been shattered on October 7th and even before. We have to be realistic. It's going to be a very gradual process. I truly believe in peace, with all my heart, but we have to be realistic. We're going to have to build very gradually the trust, to build the process of reconciliation, and hopefully also reach to the point that we can have true peace with the Palestinians in the future.
Thank you. Go for it.
What would be the priorities for Chicago Jewish community, like tangible things that you can do? Amazing, thank you. I would say two things. First, regarding Israel. Israel is going to go through a process of reconstruction, physical reconstruction, mental reconstruction, that would be very long, military reconstruction, political reconstruction, societal reconstruction in the upcoming years. And I hope we'll have the leadership in Israel that would lead us through this process, because this is what we need to do. And I know that we have this leadership. We have civil leadership, and we have also the political leadership. While there's amazing positive energies in Israel to do that, we cannot do that on our own. We will need your support. Your support could be financial. Your support could be just being there and support. And I think it is very, very important that you continue to do that. If you would ask me what is the one thing that I need to support in Israel, I would really say mental health. We're not yet in the phase of PTSD because we're still in the trauma. We're not in the post-trauma, we're still living the trauma. It's going to be huge in Israel. It's going to be huge, and we're going to need a lot of support. Many, many people, hundreds of thousands of people are going to need a lot of support. So this is one thing I would focus on. My second point is here, because as I said, I truly believe that it's an opportunity for American Jewry, really, to come together again, to reinforce the institutions, reinforce Jewish identity amongst, the younger generations, because I think that kids that go to college or even to high school and have a stronger Jewish identity, they have more tools to deal with the challenges. I'm not here to preach you about what you need to do to reinforce Jewish identity, but I would say that supporting all the wonderful institutions that exist and are not always super affordable to everybody, like from Jewish summer camps to Jewish day schools to Birthright, and you name it, it is very, very important. It needs to be, and again, this is my perspective as an Israeli, it needs to be more affordable to larger sectors in the Jewish community here. So this is my perception about that.
Won't you give him one more round of applause?